really weird, but also maybe if you are a knitter, particularly a gift knitter, maybe that's not so insane. Hello and welcome or welcome back to Tinker Swim. My name is Jennifer. I'm coming to you from Southern California. I'm a knitter and crocheter, and this is my year in review, the second video in a series that I'm doing covering all my finished projects in the world of knitting and crocheting from January through November of 2025. The first video, if you haven't seen it, we covered January through April, and this video I'll be going over May through August, which is basically the summer where I became a sock knitter and drive-by gift giver. If you do not like socks, couldn't be bothered to think about socks, there's a lot of socks in this video. So you have been warned. I'll be putting all the Ravelry project links in the description below in case you're looking for more information about the pattern or the yarn that I'm mentioning. Or if you're interested in seeing my slightly unhinged notes on some of these. If I miss anything though, or if you have any questions at all, feel free to leave a comment and I'll answer to the best of my ability. And one more housekeeping item before we get started. There's been ongoing construction right next door, so apologies if there's some background noise. I have tried to record this video about 4 times now, and I think I'm just going to go for it, and I hope it doesn't bother either of us too much. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and jump into my finished projects for May 2025. The first project that I finished was the Camellia Socks by Summer Lee of Summer Lee Design Co. This is a pattern from her book, The Sock Project. The yarn I used is from an indie dyer, the Ginger Needle, in her Cascade fingering base. The colorway is Fermi, and it's part of a collection she did inspired by NASA telescope posters. I believe this dyer has a background in aerospace engineering, and I thought that was really cool. And I saw her booth at a local art fair and picked up 2 skeins. So this is the first one that I used. A total of 50 grams went into this sock. It's got this beautiful lace motif down the front. If you saw my first episode of this roundup, you'll know that I had only done one project that involved lace or cables or stranded color work. So you're going to see some development in those 3 areas in this video, starting of course with these as my official second project involving lace. I actually chose this from a dice roll. There were a couple of projects that I wanted to do out of this book, and I couldn't decide. So I listed them all out, assigned them numbers, and rolled a 12-sided die or an 8-sided die. I play Dungeons and Dragons, so I have a lot of dice that are various numbered sides. It was actually kind of serendipitous because I really love The Lord of the Rings. If you know, then you know what this poster is about or what place this is. And the description that Summer Lee put for the Camellia Socks actually referenced Lord of the Rings, or one of the forests. I can't remember if it was Lothlorien or Mirkwood. Probably Lothlorien. Anyway, I think the pairing of this pattern and this yarn turned out to be a really beautiful choice, if I may say so myself, because it evokes feelings of like autumnal coziness to me. The pattern is really addictive. I think it's an 8-row repeat, and I also learned through this that I really do enjoy lace, especially because with the Miserina that I did, which I talked about in the first video, since it was one of many techniques that I was learning at the same time, I was kind of mentally overwhelmed in trying to ensure everything was being followed appropriately. So I didn't really get a chance to relax and enjoy just one aspect of knitting as much as when I made these socks. With each completed motif, it's just so nice and satisfying to see come together, and I can't wait to do the next one. So even though I have yet to make another lacy pair of socks, there are quite a few on my radar that I cannot wait to get started because it was so fun to do. These are my fancy socks. Like, I put them on when I feel like an extra confidence boost is in order, or if I just feel like being a little bit fancy, even if nobody sees them, it gives that extra boost because I know that I'm wearing hand knit socks. I feel like I'm talking about these socks a lot, but just one more anecdote because it does actually relate to several other projects that I ended up making. I wore these to a friend's gathering at a house where it was a shoes off policy. One of my friends who actually encouraged me to get back into crocheting and thus launched my current creative journey, she clocked these socks. There was a big hubbub, like, oh my god, these are beautiful, these are amazing. And that was actually really awesome and gave me a confidence boost and made me want to make more socks. So I ended up offering to this group of friends, and I love them all. I've known them for so many years. They are all very knit worthy, if I may say so myself. So I basically put an open invitation out there, that if anybody in this group wanted me to make them socks, basically all they would have to do is buy me the yarn and give me as much time as I can possibly ever desire to finish socks so that I don't feel pressured. That doesn't help though because I still put time pressures on myself, but it's more manageable when it's me doing that. So there were a couple of friends who did take me up on it, and we'll get into those later down the road. But yeah, it was a very silly sight. If you could imagine a group of people, just because I broke out my measuring tape, I had my knitting with me, and I was just like letting people measure their feet and record the numbers, and um, yeah, really weird. But also maybe if you are a knitter, particularly a gift knitter, maybe that's not so insane. The second object that I finished in May of 2025 was the Antler Toque, designed by Tin Can Knits. The yarn I used was Cascade 220 in the colorway 2414 Ginger for a total of 73 grams. I cast these on and finished them in the same month. This was another very addictive pattern. And this is the official hat that I did gift to my sister. So in the first video, I talked about a failed attempt at gifting my sister a hat, and this is the eventual item that I did manage to complete, be proud of, and hand off to her. It is a free pattern, and I found it very easy to follow and once again, very addictive. Just like lace, there's a certain setup period when you're following the row repeats. And when you finish one whole set of cables, it's just very satisfying to see it come together and you want to do more and more, at least for me. I also found these cables more fun to do than the ones on Mizarina, purely because if I'm going back to the feeling of a beginner and discovering, it felt a little bit less stressful when I was working with worsted weight versus fingering weight and not as precious yarn as my honeymoon acquired, got it from New Zealand, may never get it again kind of yarn. Um, Cascade 220 is a very popular yarn and very easy to work with. And I wasn't convinced of any of that until I made this hat. I had actually acquired it with the intention to make another project that didn't work out, at least for this yarn. I wanted very specific colors, but I wasn't thinking about the care. It was a gift. So I do prefer to choose superwash yarn and easy care types of yarn. Um, and so this yarn ended up in my potential destash pile for a while. It was sitting in a dark corner of my closet, and I'm really glad that I hung on to it because when I was looking at making the Antler Toque, I needed worsted weight yarn, and it just so happened that this was one of the very few worsted weight yarns that I had in the quantity that I needed. It worked up beautifully. I love the stitch definition. It's very squishy, very comfortable, at least for me. It fit on my head pretty snugly, but I would still say it's pretty comfortable. So I finished this in May, but I think I didn't give this to my sister until somewhere around June or July. So I don't know if she's had a chance to wear it yet. The weather is getting colder here periodically. Like right now, I'm kind of baking because I'm sitting right by the window. But yeah, I hope she enjoys it. The last project that I finished in May 2025 was the Little People Socks, designed by Audrey Borrego, also known as Yarn Flakes. The yarn that I used for this was the second of two skeins that I bought from the Ginger Needle. This is the colorway Papilio, which I think is from her collection that was inspired by like butterflies. This was another roughly 50 grams gone into this sock. I was in the market for a textured pattern that worked well with variegated yarns. I didn't want to make another pair of Hermione's Everyday Socks just yet. I want to try a little bit of everything, and get to know different patterns and really learn what I enjoy working on. And I feel like I will only get to do that if I continue trying new patterns, new techniques, etc., and not being necessarily tied to one per se. Having said that, I have made another pair of Hermione's Everyday Socks since, and I'm currently working on another pair of these Little People socks. There's two heel options. One of them is a standard heel flap and gusset, which some folks, I believe, with higher arches find more comfortable. The second option, which I went for, was the German short row heel, which was my first time doing it. I was interested again in learning new techniques, so I went for it and it turned out to actually fit me very well. I don't have super high arches, and when I made my Hermione's Everyday Socks, I did notice that there was a little bit of extra, or there is a little bit of extra fabric around the heel slash arch area, like that junction. Whereas for these Little People socks, it fits very, very well, very snug on my heel. There's also a new type of toe that I had never done before. I've only ever done cuff down socks. So this pattern uses a wedge toe. Normally, for a standard toe decrease, you do this gradual decrease every other row for a certain amount, and then you do a more rapid decrease every row to a certain amount of stitches, and then you Kitchener the end. With the wedge toe, instead of the left and right sides being the decrease, you're actually decreasing along a central column. So you are still doing a left and right, but the left and right are around a central, I think it was like 10 stitches, a central 10, maybe 8 stitches, which creates this trapezoid or wedge shape. I surprisingly found this way more comfortable as well. And I'm really glad I went for these socks because now these are my most comfortable pair of socks. In June 2025, I only finished one project, which is okay with me. I made the Odyssey Shawl by HooHoo Socks. This is another free pattern. I cast it on in May and I finished it in June. The yarn that I use is the worsted weight cousin of the yarn that it actually calls for, which is Tosh DK. I used Madeline Tosh Vintage. I wanted to make this shawl for my mom. She saw the picture. She said she'd be interested in getting this shawl. And when I asked if she wanted to customize the colors or anything, she was like, no, what you showed me was fine. So I really wanted to get the actual colors. Normally, I deviate from the pattern in terms of yarn choice because I'm trying to use what I have, but she really wanted to just have whatever was photographed. So I went to go get Tosh DK, but they were sold out of Joshua Tree, which is one of the three colorways. The three colorways are Cactus, Joshua Tree, and Pelican. Because I have a habit of imposing timelines on myself, I didn't want to wait for the yarn to come back in stock. So I decided to do a bunch of yarn math instead and make it harder on myself and use worsted weight. They had all the same colorways and they were all available right then and there from Wool & Co. So that's what I did. I had a great time making this pattern for the most part. There were times where I had to rip back a row or an entire like 2 rows. I had to do a safety line rescue at some point because I was doing my own math and making these adjustments. You know, things went south at different points. And speaking of points, I thought I had officially done the math okay with all of my fixes until I blocked it and I was setting out these lacy points at the end. I hope I'm putting up a picture. I don't have a lot of pictures of all these gift knits or these makes that I did earlier in the year because I didn't have any knitting social media and it didn't occur to me that I should take official photos of the finished projects. But I did zoom in on this lace tip situation that I realized was supposed to symmetrically frame the open lace circle motif that was going on in the earlier rows. I realized when I was pinning them out, they didn't line up. And that was because I miscounted at some point or I missed a repeat and I didn't have the projected number of repeats that I was supposed to about somewhere in the second color. I was not going to rip back all of that and do that over again. Not to mention, my mom is really happy with it. She didn't spot any issues, and my mom is the type of person who would point out issues if she notices it. So maybe she's noticed it by now, but she hasn't said anything to me. I decided to accept that as a mark of a handmade gift. All right, remember that pretty long story about showing off my Camellia socks? Well, the point is forthcoming because in July 2025, I finished one project, and these were the packed like sardines socks of the Fisher Folks Fancy Set, designed by Charlotte Stone of Stone Knits. I always had her socks on my radar. I have a lot of them favorited. I honestly didn't think that I'd be at the confidence or the skill set to make any of them in the near future. But one of my friends took me up on the offer to make socks. She was more than happy to have me either use yarn I already had on hand or, per my recommendation, purchase more yarn. So after talking it over with her, we decided to go ahead and have her order a blue yarn for me. I only really had this bright, saturated green from the herringbone socks left over, and I personally would have been bothered if I had socks with fish on them and the background was green, unless the theme was like toxic wastewater. So we went with Ba Yarn La Jolla in the colorway navy. I had already worked with this yarn before, so I was more comfortable with recommending that. I used a total of 46 grams for the background or the main color of the socks, and I used the Guild of St. Cuthbert and an undyed base, um, a combination of merino, cashmere, and nylon for a total of 25 grams. The Guild of St. Cuthbert came from the Renaissance Fair, my local Renaissance Fair. I had no idea that there would be a booth with yarn there, but apparently they go every year. I go every year, and I guess I just miss them every year. But this time around, I saw yarn, made a beeline toward it, and decided to pick up a skein while I was at the Renaissance Fair. So it was a pleasant surprise. It is undyed. They call this base Bare, and I'm Bare, and I'm pretty sure they're not available online. I've tried to look them up. I think they exclusively just go to the Renaissance Fair, their guild, which is a whole Renaissance Fair thing. So maybe if you're kind of local to them and you catch them at one of the Renaissance fairs that they attend, you'll be able to pick them up. Otherwise, I think I was really lucky to have this fun little experience. The person who was helping me select some yarn also ended up recommending a knitting book for my husband, which got him launched into his current knitting journey. So, shout outs to the Guild of St. Cuthbert. Let's get back to this pattern. This was so much fun. At first, I had tension issues, of course, and I was worried about them all the way through. Now, my friend did take her measurements for her feet, and they are actually pretty similar to mine. So, and I washed them before giving them to her, but I tried them on to check the fit on a regular basis because I didn't want to repeat the herringbone socks where I was just hoping for the best. They were able to get over my feet, and they roughly fit all the way through. I think her feet are a little bit more narrow than mine, so I just banked on that. They were a lot of fun to make. The pattern is easily memorizable after a certain point, especially after you get like one set of the motif done, you're able to kind of follow along for the rest. And it was just a lot of fun to see the fish motif come along. Got a good giggle out of it. The pattern also includes a regular short row heel, what I assume is that anyway. Similar to the German short row heel, I ended up having some issues with gaps, but I don't think it affected the overall project. Hopefully, I do still have concerns about like longevity and durability with those gaps. But so far, I haven't heard anything. I do know that they fit the recipient. I actually gave these socks to her when we went out to lunch with a group of friends. She made a beeline to the bathroom and, and put them on immediately, and she was super pleased with them, which made me happy. So, yeah, super happy with that project. I would and have made more of Charlotte Stone's patterns since. All right, that brings us to August 2025. I finished two projects during this month, the first of which was the HooHoo Socks. This is a pattern on Etsy. Another gift for my best friend. She was the one who pulled up the pattern link, and the person or the designer is not on Ravelry. So I think her name is Andrea, and her username, I'm going to do my best, I think it's German, is Nebenwirkung. So I have that information and I have the Etsy link in the description of my Ravelry project. I started these immediately after I finished the Pack Like Sardines socks. And my best friend was the second person who took me up on this offer to make a bunch of socks for everybody. The yarn that I used was Universal Yarn Bamboo Pop Sock Solids. That's a mouthful. Universal Yarn is the brand. Bamboo Pop Socks is the base. Normally, I think it's either self-striping or variegated. It's got a lot going on. And solids is the variation of this base where the colors are solid, as the name suggests. I used three colorways: 602 foam for a total of 34 grams, 610 teasel for 30 grams, and 621 storm cloud for 21 grams. Foam was the main color, the backdrop. The owls and all the details were in teasel, which is this nice light lavender, pinkish or dusty pinkish color. And Storm Cloud was the contrast color for the cuffs, heels, and toes. My best friend has a wool sensitivity, and she was really concerned that they would be itchy if they were on her feet. On top of that, she struggles to find high socks that fit around her calves. She has wide calves. And so her request was number one, not to make the socks in wool. And number two, if I could find something that would potentially stretch or have a good amount of flexibility. Even though I had never used it before, I went ahead and recommended this Bamboo Pop Sock Solids because it's a blend of cotton and bamboo. From my experience of working with them at this point, and also just the little bits and pieces that I learned, cotton and bamboo both tend to grow. So we went ahead and went for that. The texture is really weird to work with, especially in color work. I was having fun, but at the same time, I kind of wasn't. I needed a lot of breaks because of the dryness of the cotton and the inflexibility while working the yarn. Even though in the end you get a nice fabric that is stretchy, um, there's a lot more resistance than I'm used to if I compare it to working with like superwash merino. The pattern was really fun to work on. I didn't realize that the owls on either leg look in different directions. So there were actually mirrored charts, one for each leg, for the leg, for the heel flap and gusset area, because there's like striping that goes down the bottom of the foot, and then the foot charts, the foots, the foots of the foot portions of the socks had their own charts as well, especially because on the very bottom, I might have to use a photo from the Etsy listing because I didn't think to take really good pictures. But the bottoms of the foot have HooHoo, one who each, underneath the ball of the foot, which I got such a kick out of it. My best friend and I play Dungeons and Dragons together from time to time, and her character is an owlin, which is an anthropomorphic owl, and she's a very small creature. She's like 2 feet tall, so she's really into these like cute owl motifs. And I thought that was very appropriate. And of course, she selected the pattern herself, so we already knew there was a boost in her happiness in terms of getting these socks. And yeah, she loves them. She did send me a picture recently of her wearing them. She was thinking that it would be really cute for her son to have matching socks. Unfortunately, I don't think I could fit the entire owl motif on little baby socks because they only have so much room, but it was a really cute thought. All right, the last item that I created in August, and also the last one that I'll be covering in this video, is a garment. So we've gone through a whole gauntlet of socks and accessories. I did manage to finish a garment in August. I made Sophorine, which is designed by Audrey Borrego, also known as Yarn Flakes, and this is another free pattern. So this is a V-neck top. It can be a sleeveless top, or there's a sleeved V-neck t-shirt kind of option. There's also options for you to do color striping or pearl ridge striping, or just leaving it completely stockinette and plain. The yarn that I used was Illimani Sabri in the colorways 29 iron for the main color for a total of 116 grams, and 41-38 ash for a total of 37 grams. It creates such a beautiful fabric. It is warm weather friendly to a point, maybe not like 100-degree Fahrenheit weather, but I did wear it to a family event. It was indoor outdoor, and I think the temperature went up to around 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and I was able to be pretty comfortable in it. I made the sleeveless option, of course. I cast it on originally in April 2025, and I kind of took my time with it. Around this period, going late spring into the summer, I was leaning towards projects that were portable, lightweight, small. While this project itself isn't necessarily gigantic, there were a lot of moving parts involved, especially in the beginning. So you start with the front left panel, and you create these increases to shape the V. And then you do the front right panel, and then you do back panels, and eventually you join everything in the round to work stockinette in the round, which is the nice and mindless portion of it, sort of, unless you're striping like I did. However, I was still in this panel joining phase, and I couldn't bring it anywhere because there was just a lot going on. But in the end, it all worked out. I mean, the weather's hot here through October and a little bit of November too, so it wasn't like I was running out of time to be able to wear this. I have worn it many times since finishing it. So a couple things could have been adjusted in this pattern. It's still one of my best fitting pieces, but maybe I could have done a size down, or I could have just not done bust starts and done the regular size, size 3, I think is what I did. I don't actually think I needed that extra fabric. It still fits great. It drapes wonderfully. The yarn is a blend of cotton and alpaca, and with the vast majority of it being in cotton. So it is still warm weather friendly. However, both types of fibers tend to grow. And I think I could have done more along the armholes because the stretching has occurred a little bit. And I think if I had done more ribbing or like just a little bit longer with the ribbing, it wouldn't really be an issue. Not that it's a big issue right now, but I guess it is a minor inconvenience that you can kind of see part of my bra band when I'm wearing it as just a regular tank top. All that aside, I'm really happy with the Sophorine. I would make another one and I would make a v-neck t-shirt version as well. Goodness knows I could use some more t-shirts. My wardrobe is 50% business casual and gym clothes. There's no real going out looking nice kind of clothes while not looking businessy. But hey, that's the beauty of being able to knit and crochet, and with respect to that, start to craft my very own pieces of wearable artwork essentially. I'm so happy I finished filming all of this and there was minimal construction noise. I hope. I hope there was anyway. I was so in the zone. Who knows? Maybe I completely missed it. That's everything that I was going to cover in this video. In the next video, I'll be wrapping up my year in review for September through November. If there's room, I'll also be giving out completely made up awards to my finished projects to celebrate the trials and the triumphs, the lessons learned, get a good laugh out of things. And I'll be doing some lightweight reflections on everything that I learned this year and what I'm looking forward to carrying with me into 2026. If that ends up being way too much for one video, then look forward to 2 more videos in this series, but hopefully I can get it to fit into one. With that all being said, I appreciate you so much for spending this time with me and walking down memory lane. Feel free to subscribe if you want to watch my next installment of this series, or if you want to see a future episode. Again, if you have any questions or if I left anything out, please feel free to leave a comment. In any case, I hope all of your projects are going well. I hope you're taking breaks. And most of all, I hope you have a wonderful day, morning, evening, whenever you are watching this. Take care.